Aqui o som, por favor. Pessoal, vou pedir para que ocupem seus lugares para darmos início à nossa segunda parte aqui do Fórum Brasil.
So please take your seats. Let's begin our afternoon session. Thank you. Good afternoon. So let's restart. We are live from London. This is our LIDE global event. We have this transmission to the entire world via TV LIDE. So let's play a video of the LIDE Forum in France that will take place in Paris with the presence of the French President Emmanuel Macron.
Bom, e vamos dar início agora ao nosso painel 3.
So let's start panel number 3 on sustainability. The topic is tackling climate change and socio-environmental challenges. So I would like to invite Patricia Ellen. She is the managing partner in at Systemic Brazil, former Secretary of Economic Development in the state of São Paulo. Also, Tarde Guido, CEO of Ambipar Europe. José Luís Blasco, Global VP of Sustainability Acciona. Also, Julia Ocatz, she's the Director of Natural Resources and Urban Solutions of Systemic. Also, Breno Silva, President of LIDE UK. Finally, João Doria Neto, CEO of LIDE Global, and he will explain to you the dynamics of this afternoon event. Thank you very much, Max. So, hi Roberto, Senator. To those who were not here in the morning, the dynamics are the same. So Patricia will have the presentations, on 10 minutes limit. You'll have the timings in front of you, and at the end we'll have a Q&A session, so you can ask your questions. You can just raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you, and the goal is also to start a dialogue, positive dialogue. So to save time, I think we can swiftly move on to the first presentation. Also, I would like before that to salute everyone who's following us online. We stopped the transmission for lunch, but now we are back on YouTube and via all the media partners. So panel 3, as you said, Carlos, the topic is Brazil's role in tackling climate change and socio-environmental challenges. This has been present in all the topics we have covered so far, so energy and data centers, etc. So sustainability is at the basis of everything. So first we'll start with Julia Ocatz. She's the director of urban and natural resources of Systemic. We'll also invite Patricia. It's a global company, widely respected one. So, without further ado, please, you have the floor.
I did live in Brazil for 2 years and absolutely loved it, but it's 12 years ago, so I won't punish you with my rusty Portuguese. I'm sorry. But I really liked it. I wish to go back, but I have occasional luck when Patricia invites me over to the Brazil office, but usually I'm here in London. I am German. You might have my accent, so it's all a mix. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I'll introduce you a little bit to Systemic, but then, of course, we have our Brazil champion here, so she will talk to you more about also the Brazil and UK connection. And then I'm not sure if I'm coming back in the panel, or shall I do my whole piece now about the examples? We have 10 minutes now. Okay, that's good. So I see I'll be being timed. Okay, fine. So it's okay. I'll be brief. And then I would like to start with 2 examples that we're working on in Systemic. I always think it's nice to have something tangible, and then I think we will hear a lot more from Patricia and the other speakers. So about Systemic, I'll keep it short. You'll get Patricia's version in a moment, but it's a multidisciplinary firm. I would say it's an enabler of systems change. We do a lot of different things, everything from strategy consulting to coalition building and enabling of private-public partnerships in the wide field of sustainable natural resources management, and a lot of projects, especially in the more recent times, in resilience and how to make resilience solutions and opportunities investable. And that we do across different countries, specifically across the UK and Brazil and some others, but probably of less importance right now. So what I want to do is just tell you about 2 or 3 examples of what we do, because what does this mean, making resilient solutions investable, right? Like it's a big term. It's like, what does that mean? And also I recognize everybody says that these days, right? We'll make it investable. It's an economic opportunity. So two examples of where that has actually worked. So I'll do 2 parts, which is one is urban regeneration, and you hear, I think from my title, if my Portuguese ear was correct, that is also was part of my description. So we work a lot with real estate investors, cities, government, different institutions to enable large-scale urban development, or in Europe, we tend to call it regeneration because it's usually already there, projects, and then think about and work with those investors to see how do we bake resilience into those plans and how does that work. And then I will also talk about nature-based water resilience infrastructure, because we're super proud to be co-leading the Flood Action Coalition, which is launching on Monday. So if any of you are still here on Monday and need a good drink and a good event, you can come to that one too, which works with the largest investors, insurers, asset owners, landowners, and I'm forgetting some, farmers, in the UK to make nature-based water resilience infrastructure investable. And what is nature-based water resilience infrastructure? Effectively, it's wetlands, it's certain types of woodlands and forests, it's leaky dams, a lot of beavers, so everything that's good for society and communities, and turns out also for major infrastructure assets. So starting with urban development and urban regeneration, I mean, we're all familiar with real estate investment, that is not a big thing. So when we started out, we were thinking about how do we work with real estate investors to make their developments more sustainable, right? It's like a fairly straightforward question. And we soon realized, sure, you can do a bunch of things, but basically people have done them, right? You do like you get your building to be more energy efficient, that's nice, maybe you have a little garden, a green roof and so on, but you quite soon hit the limits of what you can do, and it's really not a systemic change. So what does produce systemic change? One example that I love to refer to is King's Cross, the King's Cross development here in London. If you haven't been and you need a little walk, it's amazing to look at. And what they have done, and to be entirely transparent, we were only partially involved, but it's still one of my favorite examples. What they have done is they coordinated landowners across the major train station in London to work together, and then they also set up a private-public partnership with Camden Council in that instance to co-invest in this place. And why did it turn out more resilient, more sustainable, more resilient, fundamentally more resilient? Is because it's a really extraordinary case of economic diversification. So what you otherwise see around train stations, especially, or in larger real estate developments, not only in London, but high-priced locations, you will see a lot of offices, shopping malls, restaurants, the usual. There's no diversification. If you go to King's Cross, you can see it's London's Google headquarters there, it's universities there, it's art there, it's a whole new level of intermingling knowledge economy, economic diversification, and also social diversification, and all of that is bolstered by a lot of public amenities and creative spaces and art spaces. It's really an extraordinary development, and it was brought about by this type of stakeholder coordination that I am talking about, and which we do a lot of, which is between the different investors, landowners, and Camden Council. And it's just a great example of how do you make something more resilient, actually an economic opportunity and an investment opportunity. You can also go, if you like, nature-based solutions. It's one of the very few examples where you have an urban wetland in the middle of a major capital and next to a train station. And even though it's a small wetland, it has extraordinary effect on flood protection, for example, and also extreme heat reduction. Now that's the UK, and it's an inspiring example. We're in the starting phase of doing something similar in some cases, inspired by that, in the Belém Airport District, which many of you have already seen or will see during the next few weeks. Unfortunately, when you walk through, I don't think you see very much yet of what our project, because it's very early stages. Maybe you can see a plan somewhere, but you can imagine it when you walk through it. So what we've done in that urban district is to say, how do we go beyond a development strategy that, again, is the usual, right? It's a shopping mall, it's a hotel, maybe a conference center. None of those things are necessarily bad, but it's an outdated model that brings no economic resilience, let alone any sort of climate resilience, right? So what we've done with the amazing leaders there of that district and concessionaire is to come up with a innovation economy-focused development strategy with view on how to capture and leverage best also public investments, right? So again, it's this thing about public-private partnership where you don't go and just be like, what is the next thing next year that is investable, but what is a broader vision that will bring that fundamental economic resilience. Of course, we've also thought about resilience on the ground, right? What are the nature corridors, the public transport links, and so on that will actually make that district attractive and resilient in itself, but also in connection with the city, bring the best value to the city in the mid and long term. So I hope that probably, well, not when you go next week, but the next time you go to Belém, you will actually see it created, right, and not just on plans. Now I have 1 minute 20 left, so I do want to tell you about the Flood Action Coalition, because I think it's an example that has tremendous potential in the UK where we're creating it, but also in Brazil, because I mean, who has more expertise in nature-based solutions, right, than Brazil? And also, quite frankly, challenges in water resilience, so both drought and flood. So what we're doing with the coalition is we work directly with the infrastructure asset owners, water companies, highways, railways, power stations that are directly threatened by flood and drought, to see how can they invest in, I'd say, wetlands, so nature-based solutions, recognizing that these solutions are actually super cost-effective. So what we've seen is they're the most cost-effective in lowering drought and and flood risk, but just hard to invest in at the moment, right? So if you're, let's say, a water company and you have drought risk, you can't just go and be like, how can I buy 1/8 of a wetland? It's not a marketplace, right? You can't just go and invest in that. So it needs a coordination, a systemic coordination, and in this case, we've built this coalition to make these things investable to then benefit these asset owners. And again, if you wanted to learn more, I'm very happy. This is my baby now. I think that all of these examples are prime examples where the UK and Brazil can learn from each other and inspire each other and invest in each other to make those solutions even better.
Thank you, Julia Katz. Bom, nesse momento eu queria registrar aqui com vocês.
Okay, thank you. So our viewership has doubled. So we have 4,100 viewers. Welcome to our forum. Now we'll move on to Tassis Guido. He's the CEO of Ambipar Europe.
We are in the panel. I want to say thank you for João Doria for the opportunity that we have. I'm Tarsis Guido. I'm the CEO for COO for Ambipar in Europe, UK, and Africa. And we, as a global environmental solutions, we have been seeing the impact of the climate change and also the social impact. We deal with that in every time, in every situation. Today we see that the temperature is rising of 1.1 degree from the pre-industrial levels. And that alone brings a lot of problem itself, a lot of droughts, a lot of floods. We have the wildfires. There is a lot of that we are experiencing already. And here in Europe, we have seen through the Valencia floods, we have seen recently in Spain, in Murcia as well, the floods, and we are dealing with those problems, and we can see in the Rio Grande do Sul as well, a close problem. So it's a challenge that already we have there, and we try to bring solutions as we know that we can work with that, and we can make it a way that is financially viable for people to be able to address this situation and have a better economical solutions. What we see that the poorest nations, they are the ones that they're not able to implement economical plans, but they are the ones suffering most from the sustainable issues. So when we see all these conditions, what we try to do, Ambipar, is try to work together with communities, try to work together on the environment that they have, and make it a close plan or work close to them to be able to help on each scenario. So recently with the Valencia floods, we have this whole city going through a devastated situation. So we were able to implement a plan, people, and work with them to be able to make their lives going back to normal again. That's the challenge that is increasing. That is a lot that we do in Brazil already with the circular economy. We try to work with companies like the Valley that we heard in the beginning of the conference, and we work with them as well, doing some other waste management. So that's what Ambipar tries to work, is to make viable and easy and take these opportunities into a way that we can metrify, we can measure, we can be clear and transparent on the work that we do. So I'm very short on my time. I know it's after lunch, everybody can get a bit tired, but yeah, that's me. That's what we work on. And if you want to listen more, and if you want to learn more of the projects that we do, I think we can talk later. One thing that we've been working recently, and I heard a lot of biofuels from cane, from corn. Here in Europe, a lot of biofuels from potato. But what we're developing in Brazil is doing the biofuels through the sugar food. And we are developing now a way which our fleet in São Paulo, they all using biofuel through that is generated by food. So all the sugar food that we have, chocolates, Coca-Cola, all that stuff, you know, that cannot be so good for us, maybe can be good for our cars. In the near future, it can be good for our vehicles. It can help, you know, to develop in many other ways that we see that the world is trying to change. Thank you very much.
Obrigado ao Tarso Guido. E nesse momento,
Thank you, Tarso Guido, and I would like to invite the Global Vice President of Acciona, José Luiz Blasco, for his presentation.
Thank you for inviting me the second time, Mr. Doria. It's a real pleasure. I always honored to receive your invitation. Sorry, I am Spanish. I am not speak Portuguese, and you will discover that English is my mother tongue, but I never met my mother. The thing that I want to explain to you is a different angle about the climate and sustainability that we are really very frequently connected. Because I have only good news today. Only good news. Probably this year, you can believe or not, but probably this year will be the first year that will decline the global GHG emissions for first time after the COVID, of course, but for first time we will decline. And it is not because we have a very good public servant at the conference. It is not by the cops. It's because there is a logic, imperial logic of economy behind all the climate. And I want to explain how my company, or our company, that is Acciona, is only based on sustainable infrastructure solutions, because we believe that behind the climate, there is an amazing opportunity of transformation. And I want to boost your intention on invest on climate. The first thing that we need to understand, that last year, the peak of the prices in a renewal changed completely the landscape. We have two main mega forces. The first mega force that I want to refer is the electrification, and the second is the resilience. And behind these two, there is a lot of good opportunities. The first is that if you have a look to what are the prices of an investment on renewables, everybody knows that we are now doubling the investment in renewables than in the fossil fuels. Double. Why? Is because the people want to become Greta Thunberg? No. It's because it's the most clever way to invest in this moment. And I want to show you some figures that I try to encourage you to know more about what is happening behind this movement and how you can get this opportunity to have a double dividend for the planet and also for your P&L. The first thing that you need to know is that we started in renewables in 2007. Sorry, 1997. You can imagine, at that time, renewables was an alternative energy. If you have a look to how the prices will become fallen during the last decade, only in the last decade, you can see how the imagination and the innovation can do from this technology in all the key topics that we need to understand. That is what is the generation, the solar and wind, and also how we are storing this in order to use for different for the usage. That is the batteries. This is the pathway. You can imagine other technology with this innovation curve. Amazing. The second is that every time that we try to forecast what are the next level, we were wrong. Every time that we are trying to imagine how the renewables will behave, we were wrong because we fall short. Every time. If you have a look to the prices, now the prices are really very close to the fossil fuels range of the marginal cost. Wow! This is very, very remarkable because at that time, the fluctuation of the prices of the oil and gas probably will go and up and down for 1 decade. And with that, who wants to invest in more far and deeper yields? Probably we will have another real situation. And the second is that the incumbent in the oil and gas sector are only few, and you will have the freedom to become the next big generator in your country. This freedom is the accessibility of renewable energy is a new democratic movement of economic growth. And this is another thing that you need to take into account. The statistics are wrong. Statistics are wrong. Why? Because if you have a look to the countries and you compare how the people is importing the panels or in their countries and the statistics of the national grids is completely decoupled. Why? Because they are not connected to the grid. Because you will be free, decentralize your own new generator for your company. This is a new situation. You can imagine in 1 or 2 decades when the marginal cost of energy and also the jobs, the people, the paid work will be marginal in your company. You can imagine this new situation in only 2 decades due to the artificial intelligence and renewal. We are really in a new scenarios. And we need to understand how the context can affect our companies and how we can be not the laggards, sino, of course, the impulse, this impulse. The other way is that when you are thinking about electrification, because this is behind all this movement, you can see how we are electrifying our economy. You have a look to the current levels of electrification. We are very, very good at electrifying procedures. But it is very good because if you have a look to the efficiency of the fossil engines in comparison with the electric ones, you will see that the electric ones are by far more efficient than the fossil fuel because the thermodynamic principles behind that are completely different. It's completely different. This is another technology. I have an anecdote. I was having dinner with the CEO of BNF a couple of months ago, and he said, "I am not sure what is Tesla. It's more close to Volkswagen or a coffee maker, because a coffee machine, because this is not the same technology. We have not working with engines. We are talking about another things, and the technology is by far more, and the electrification will become the new normal. Also with the batteries and the recycling and all this stuff. But let me refer to the second mega force that is changing also on the climatenomics that we are calling. It's about the resilience. We are probably trapped in this cycle that we are thinking that if you have more events on climate, you will damage in your economy, and these damages will suffer a lot in terms of fiscal and also suffering of the population and the local economy. That is really true. But behind this, if you have a look to another way, and you have this as an impulse, you will see another amazing source of opportunities behind how we need to adapt. Because believe it or not, we are having a lot of new events with climate that are really, really impacting these economies. This is the abnormal temperatures around the world. But if you have a look to how the floods are impacting the insurance companies, it's amazing how they are increasing their losses. 60% of those losses are not in insurance, with insurance. The second thing is that most of the part of the world will be not insurable in probably 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10 years. This is the map of non-insurable areas in Australia, currently, now. There is a lot of opportunities there, because many consultancy firms were identifying this kind of opportunities. Systemic also have another study, BGG, McKinsey. Please have a look how this could have a meaning for your business. Because, for example, after the wildfires in Spain that was amazing, we discovered an incredible business of biomass. Because cleaning the mountains, using for energy, you are making the double dividend that you are preventing the wildfires, and at the same time you are getting very cheap biomass in order to produce energy. But you need to make the connection in order to protect the climate at the same time that you are making the opportunity. And I have another in my half a minute that I have. This is amazing example that we have in North Dakota with a concession that this is Fargo 15 years ago. We built a 50 kilometers diversion channel across around the community of Fargo-Moorhead in a PPP paid by the day that you are not flood. The concession is that the citizens of Fargo-Moorhead, this is not small. This is 2.3 billion PPP. But they make this, putting a tax on every sale that they are making in their community. Finally, I think that if you have a look to the climatenomics as an opportunity, you think about the climate as a solution, not only as an urgency that we need to tackle, that this is really true. I think that you will find also a source of creativity and innovation that I want to invite to explore. We have in the Line 6 of Metro Sao Paulo next Friday an event. What will be the first time that you can visit the new line? As is another example that a great partnership between the public and private sector in the Estación de San Marina in Sao Paulo on Friday, if you want to come with us. Thank you. Great.
Muito obrigado, José Luiz Blasco.
Thank you very much, José Luiz Blasco. And now to conclude this panel, I invite here Patricia Helen. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'll do my best to keep within the time, but some of the topics have been presented, and I'm really happy to talk about this topic, and that's why I'm here today. So I worked for 20 years in the private sector at McKinsey. Then I led a technology company in health, and I was then part of the government, and I've worked a lot with the social sector. What I'm absolutely sure, and you can see that we are at a crossroads where many opportunities are seen as issues, as problems. We are facing climate challenges, which are before us, but we will only deal with them with PPPs and partnerships between the private and the public sector. So that's why I went to Systemic. I've joined them in order to work with these coalitions and to find solutions, to see where solutions are coming from. But with no exception, all these large solutions have an engagement of multiple stakeholders. So some slides are similar to those of José Luis, but Julia has talked about resilience, adaptation, and that's why I've been studying a lot about it. In Europe, we talk about energy efficiency, certification, infrastructure planned in a more comprehensive manner. In Brazil, we've got natural resources. We have a lot of experience in using land. And although we are facing geopolitical challenges, Brazil is experiencing a great moment in terms of opportunities, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Adaptation and resilience, for those who are not familiar with. We talked about mitigation, so let's reduce CO2 emissions. As we haven't been able to do this, we had 10 years of the Paris Agreement. We went over the 1.5 degrees, and the overview, the scenarios we're working with, they are scenarios where we'll have an increase in 2 degrees. When we think about cities, drought in cities, we need to adapt. That's our reality. So how do we work doing both things at the same time? But we have a more comprehensive approach showing that investment in adaptation can bring great results. Within this program and at COP that we will have in Brazil, we have 3 key aims. We want to bring resources from the private sector for emerging countries, investment for the climate, and adaptation. Private investment represent $40 trillion, less than 2% go to emerging countries, but 65% of growth is coming from these countries. So we need to improve our narrative in terms of private sector. In terms of climate finance, we need at least 1.3 trillion, and for adaptation, we will need at least 350 billion. What can we see? That this investment brings returns. For each dollar invested, we receive $4 back in terms of avoided losses. And here I have a table showing that, for instance, one of our partners, who's a specialist, has published this cost of inaction cost. And if we don't invest, you're going to see what we're going to lose here. But if we invest, and there is a new book coming up about this, we will have a new economic model for development. So that is why we have a lot of opportunity. There's no coincidence showing that the basis show that we need to leave the negative view that we are just spending money, but to see the long-term investment and returns. So in Brazil, we don't have someone who performs this integration, and that's why concession models and PPPs need to be very well designed and sometimes redesigned. This report, which is going to be discussed at COP, shows where this $350 million, the minimum investment, need to be performed by sector. So obviously we're talking about coastal areas, floods, and these areas need investment, at least 1/3. And then we need agricultural sector with more investment because of the impact. So obviously the debate that we had was very interesting for that regard. So yes, we have opportunities, challenges, risks, and we map sector by sector and the type of return. Obviously, we have people and we have health as well, with several opportunities. It's a very high risk. We observed what happened at Rio Grande do Sul, not just the impact, but also the recovery. And we have several risks posed here, but we have opportunities. This concept of resilience, adaptation, translating for Brazil, investing in resilience is the greatest lever for inclusion and development. We have a summary here, a work we've been doing, showing that one can double the growth investing in these areas. It's a continuation. You can see the date of what's been discussed in the morning. You can see the opportunities through this program called Ecological Transformation of Indústria Brasil. So in states, they have development programs, but you always find energy transition, electrification, critical minerals, batteries, urban mobility, reindustrialization, ecologically, and then we have circular economy, infrastructure, and carbon markets are being regulated as well. COP is very important right now. We are defining 4 great themes which will make available and viable several areas. We have carbon markets as well as other ones, and this legal framework for us to have more agile increase. Obviously, sectors need to have added value, and I just wanted to highlight a question made by the Indonesian representative. We should ensure, she said, that our countries are just not providing resources, but are inserted with added value in global markets. I would say that this is the biggest issue for us. So how can we contribute in these negotiations for debates to add value in the economy, reflecting biodiversity? Yes, we are the largest one in the world, but we are also complex. So when we started this study, we have even Vietnam showing more diversity and easy of business. So we have more agricultural exports. Unfortunately, for instance, biofuels are not the greatest share of our exports, and this is a very important opportunity. Here, I won't show all the slides, and I just want you to pay attention to the fact that if we don't qualify people, if we don't have capacity building, we won't be able to develop. So, but if we don't do anything, we'll have over 20 million people unemployed due to AI and also due to other risks posed by the climate and changes in the global economy. On the other hand, if we invest in these areas, we can generate jobs for these people, and the net effect is positive. So it's very striking that today we have a message to politicians. Please use this agenda to talk about jobs, to talk about entrepreneurial initiatives. This is very important, and I'm going to conclude now, and I would like just to tell you that we have a manual here and a report that is very important with 2 examples that were debated in the morning. BioSAF is the sustainable aviation fuel. We have 7 routes for development, but how are we going to make it happen? In which states, with what technology, and who is going to work with it? We have investments announced here showing what we have as opportunities and where qualified people are located. So this needs to be aligned. For now, many investments are located in areas where we don't have people. Therefore, we'll have to match this. And here we are launching for you to show a platform by state showing this view with the opportunities, value chain, where we have the assets, in terms of various areas and people to be able to plan this, not just nationally, but by state. And another example, it's critical minerals. We have them in several regions. However, we are able to export technology. And here, battery cells are very important for Brazil as an opportunity. And here I have announced investment and qualification of the workforce per state. And then using big data, we show how to train the population and leverage investments in specific sectors, which can be utilized for us to perform and realize these investments. I would like to show these concrete topics for you to see, not to remain in the conceptual area, but we have opportunities everywhere around Brazil. So when we talk about resilience, climate change, and entrepreneurial business opportunities, we have models that are very viable and interesting. Yes, we talked about infrastructure, we discussed that at COP. It's very important to have foreign investors in Brazil. Next week, we'll have a record of private investors, foreign private investors coming to Brazil. We have a large event from Bloomberg. We have PRI, all of them taking place in São Paulo. In Rio, we have Saifori, we have other events, and at Belém, we have COP30. So these are key weeks for us as investment opportunities, and Julia mentioned an example at Belém Airport. It was an airport planned on this demand, but thinking about the future, so for the next 20 years, it is an airport that is going to grow, and it must fulfill this demand for the future that we're discussing here, including biofuels. It has been planned very well with the MIT, so using big data to show the opportunities, and it is an airport whereby if we have the technology applied, will perform very well in terms of return on investment. So I'd like to conclude with this phrase saying that we have a unique opportunity to show to the world that Brazil, it's a protagonist of food revolution, energy revolution, and climate revolution. But for that, we need to learn what resilience is, invest in technological solutions, infrastructure, but especially in our people. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Patricia. As we don't have that much time, I am going to ask the first 2 questions. So first of all, with Patricia, now we know that COP30 is about to take place. I would like to ask you how countries can reconcile economic growth with decarbonization targets before all these climate crises we are facing right now. A little bit of what I've shown here in the example of Brazil, the solution is an opportunity. represents an opportunity. We are at a unique position. If you ask someone from the UK, they would reply in a different manner. And they don't have the same natural resources that we have in Brazil. The big issue for us is how much value can we capture, because we'll be able to export inputs. We have many countries asking for us to provide access to inputs, but the question is, can we qualify people, invest in technology for us to be able to have added value contracts? And it is for that reason when I talk about India, China, South Korea, which is a very important example, they say, oh, Brazil cannot replicate. That's why I've mentioned Vietnam, because in three years ago, they were not doing what they are doing right now. We can do it, but we need strategy, planning, not just on the political level. We need strategy in the private sector and in the States. So each bilateral negotiation, Lord Evans was here in the morning, a very iconic example is from Peru. They've invested over $2 billion with intelligence, with UK, Peru government, and the private initiative in order to recover the area affected by El Niño. So they've looked back, understood the losses, but also planned for the future with a different approach. Many thanks, Patricia. Now I will ask José Luis Blasco the next question. So José Luis, I would like to know what mechanisms, international ones, are more efficient to reduce emissions and to finance climate adaptation in developing countries.
Not easy question.
Okay.
Okay, let me refer to the more and more. Okay, I think that most of you knows what are NDCs, the National Determined Contribution, that are the documents that the countries send to the UNFCCC in order to define what are the compromises, because Paris Agreement is not a really legally binding convention. Is imposed by the country commitment. Okay, I think that the challenge now is that during the last decade, since Paris, we were thinking on the NDCs as a renounce. And when you are referring, for example, to how you can hardly get the climate commitments. Wait a moment. What happens if we have not NDCs and we have investment plans? Because when I visit probably half of the COPs since inception here in Rio in 1992, and the private sector is a Chinese bus. This is something that is beautiful to have, but nobody knows what to do with that. And but imagine that you have a roadshow, and when you come to your president, come to your country and say, "Okay, guys, we have committed as the UK, we have committed to reduce 80% before 2040." Okay, but I get 100 billion in order to invest in this transformation, because my NDC really connect with investors' needs. And this is the problem. We are thinking that all of this movement, that the climate, is because we need to be good, because the urgency is coming. But this is a question, as my colleagues have shown very visible, that this is a question of economic rationale. And if we don't take this as in part of the narrative, we always will see that the climate is only a question that we need to tackle because we need to be good. My invitation, I think that we share with my colleagues, that when you are talking about adaptation, and you think about, for example, I read FT last week said that the president of Iran is thinking to change Tehran as a capital of the Iran because they have no water. They haven't water to feed 10 million people in Tehran, and they need to change. If you think about what is the impact of this, you will see that in many parts of the world, the climate is changing. If you are in the thinking independently of your ideology, independently of your ideology, and I think that once you have realized that, you are more free and you can act.
Thank you. Thank you ao José Luiz Blasco. Bom, e nesse momento nós vamos...
Thank you very much. And now we're going to conclude this panel. I asked Johnny to stay here, and also Breno, please. And I would like to call here on stage Patricia Ellen, Julia Bocas, Tarcius Guido, and our other presenters. Very well. We are going to start the fourth panel, which is about games and betting platforms in Brazil. And for this panel, I would like to call here Irajá Silvestre, Senator and President of the Parliamentary Front of BRICS at the Federal Senate. Please, I'd like to call here Roberto Campos Neto, Vice Chairman of New Bank and former President of Central Bank of Brazil. And I would like to call Hazin Cleaver, President of LOTERJ. And we have in the panel, but not speaking. If they want to speak, that's absolutely fine, no problem at all. He's very good, indeed. Please take your seats. Johnny, just the last person. I call to the stage Susan Bala, founder and CEO of Phoenix Global Technology.
Por favor, Johnny, você a palavra.
Please, John, you have the floor.
Por favor, o fone aqui para o Johnny.
Alô, alô.
Microphone for Johnny, is it working? Okay. Before we start, I would like to show a video. Can you hear me?
Alô, agora foi.
Okay, it's working. Just before we start this panel, Hazin Cleaver, because this is outside the scope of the more traditional topics, so to speak, I was looking at the data, and Brazil right now is the third largest online betting market in the world. We move between 20 and 30 billion Brazilian real every month. 2025, we saw the implementation of the new regulations, so the data might be outdated, but there's a large number of licensed operators in the country, and the receipts from this market are estimated to be around 20 billion per year. So I think, Hazin Cleaver, I think you've been involved in the regulations regarding gaming, and you've been involved in fact, in many places in the world. And you, as the president of LOTERJ, and there's Phoenix as well, Phoenix Global, that's represented by Susan Bala. It's a large company that has been in Brazil for a few years, but the British tech companies, they dominate the market of online gambling. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the main bases of the company that is responsible for the Tigrinho game, it's a famous gambling game in Brazil. I believe those companies are based here in the UK. So this is a relevant topic to Brazil. We've been following its development very closely. It used to be seen as a problem, but it has expanded so much that Brazil needs to make the most of it and see it as an opportunity. So, Marcos, yes, very well said. This gives us a context of the debate that we'll have during the Q&A session. And let's start with Hazen Cleaver Cansado. He's the president of LOTEJ. Please, for your presentation. Thank you.
Senhoras e
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure that I'm here at this event organized by LIDE Brasil UK here in London, and I'm representing LOTEJ, the Rio de Janeiro lottery. I would like to salute our former president, Michel Temer, whose public career and his institutional contributions are very inspiring for a constructive dialogue that we are trying to foster in this event. Michel Temer was a highly admired statesman. He's highly respected and highly celebrated as well. He was a statesman that didn't think about administering our country with his thoughts on the upcoming election, but he managed the country thinking of the next generations. I would also like to salute our governor, João Doria, entrepreneur, a visionary, and throughout his career he has done a great deal of good for our country, and it's really important to shape the future of Brazil. I would like to salute all the guests, all the businessmen and women, those who are responsible for this point of contact between UK and Brazil. I would also like to salute Cláudio Castro, the government, who, with his great leadership, has been making possible for Rio to find the right route to follow and to transform the state. His government is not afraid of the hard work and doesn't run away from the greatest challenges. So this afternoon here in London, and end of morning in Brazil, after I listened to international leaders and specialists debating, as well as our MPs, they debated agribusiness, energy transition, food security and sustainability. We now will move on to digital platforms and the low-tax products. In our sector, this sector, it's really important to LOTEJ and for our state. This market represents billions of reais in Brazil and millions of British pounds in the UK. It's not just about the receipts, but we need to think about the people as well. So in the upcoming minutes, I would like to prove that. So the long history of gambling in Brazil had its first lottery in 1784. During 3 centuries, the Brazilian legislation was somewhere in between prohibition and regulation. Casinos were banned in Brazil in 1946, and the government at the time, and lotteries and bets on horse races remain legal. The Brazilian Congress has been debated for almost 4 decades, the legalization of gambling, including casinos, bingos, amongst others. While Brazil is debating this, the UK is the second largest global market in the gambling sector, right after the USA. And I would like to stress out that the largest potential of the sector is not in the receipts, not in the profits, but in the people. Every new regulated game, any new modernized low-tech product, all of that represents new opportunities, new jobs, new opportunities to make a living in Brazil. So the government of Rio is opening itself to the world of gambling in a transparent, sustainable and responsible manner. And London, which is home to some of the highest, the most successful regulatory frameworks in the context of gambling, it's the right place to debate how we can transform this Brazilian potential into shared prosperity to improve the quality of life of our people who are facing social vulnerability. So today, we'll talk about numbers in this important forum, but we'll also need to talk about purposes. Rio, under the leadership of Governor Cláudio Castro, became an example for other states in Brazil and also to other countries that have been following our regulatory framework. So right now, it's possible to transform entertainment and technology in human, social, and economic development. LIDE is also important for the development in Brazil by fostering innovation, growth, economic growth, and this forum makes internationalization of Brazilian companies easier, also attracts investments from the UK into Brazil, and fosters as well technical cooperation between the two nations. And Rio de Janeiro has a regulatory framework that's amongst one of the most robust and most attractive in the world. It's the most attractive for international investors. And we're talking about a state with more than 17 million people. That's more than 33 European countries. For instance, Portugal, Sweden, Switzerland, and Greece, just to give you some examples. It's the second largest economy in the country. We're talking about a state with a high-level economy that continues to grow, and no one can stop the growth of the state of Rio. In 2024, our GDP grew 3.9%. It was 15% above the national average. And the prospects continue to be positive for the year of 2025. FIAGEN, which is the national agency, has been estimated a growth of They are estimating that the GDP will continue to grow in the state of Rio in 2025. Rio is confident. We have investments in housing, public safety, and infrastructure. We keep strengthening the economy, and we've been, as such, reaffirming our power within the context of Brazil. We could be building more in Brazil, if not for the endless debate regarding the legalization of bingos and casinos in Brazil. These continue to move billions of Brazilian real every year, but they continue to be operated outside the scope of the state. The issue here is not to legalize gambling. What we need to focus is in protecting society, generate new resources, generate jobs, income, and promote tourism, and so forth. If we legalize gambling, Michel Temer, the president, when he did that, he initiated a new chapter in the history of gambling in Brazil. So the challenge of regulating allows us to transform. the country. Michel Temer, in an interview that he gave after he left office, he recognized that allowing for online gambling in Brazil may have created undesirable social economic consequences, such as an increase in debt amongst vulnerable families. But if our president had had the necessary time to regulate the law that was approved back then, nowadays we'd have a different, we'll be facing a different situation. We'll be in a safer and more prosperous position. Senator Irajá, who has been the rapporteur for the new law, he has been promoting this project as much as he can. Senator Irajá knows that the UK, where we are here today, the UK is an example that regulated gambling represents more tourism, more jobs and more legal safety. The English law avoids unnecessary restrictions that may limit innovation and reduce the attractiveness of the products that we have in the market. And the example to follow in Brazil is the legislation of the state of Rio. We are an example of how regulated gambling and responsible gambling improves the quality of life of the people who is facing a situation of vulnerability. We improve the quality of life of people who live in socio-economic difficulties. And Rio has given another step forward by regulating the sport bars with the video lotteries. So this market may generate 65,000 new jobs just in the state of Rio, and also allows us to create indirect jobs as well. Our disruptive regulatory model places Rio at the vanguard of the sector in Latin America. The legislation of VLTs in Rio will attract tourists nationally and internationally, improving the receipts in leisure and the industry of entertainment. We have been seeing a growth of tourism in 2025. Up until September, we have surpassed the number of tourists that came to Rio during the Olympic Games. So VLTs may amplify even more that influx. They may prolong the time that tourists stay in Rio, and we can become a global reference in this sector. Let me conclude by saying that the largest potential of gambling and lotteries is not just in the tax revenue, it's in the people. In 2025, in the first 10 months of 2025, LOTEJ has been investing in social actions and sports actions in the entire state of Rio, 40 times more than used to be invested before online gambling became regulated in the state. This number is clear. This is not a matter of luck, it's a matter of strategy, of management, of having a commitment with the population. So LOTEJ is now a brave institution that looks to the future, but never forgets the people that need the state the most. We are paving the way, and our mission, the mission of LOTEJ, goes beyond gambling. We use gambling as a vehicle for hope. It's a pathway for social transformation. And so we go beyond gambling. We invest in social responsibility with innovation and transparency. We are proud, we are respectful, and we give confidence to the people of Rio. So for Lotege and for the governor, Claudio Castro, the real prize is in improving lives and also in transforming people. Thank you very much.
Obrigado ao Rasen
Thank you, Hazen Cleaver Cansado. Now I would like to give the floor to Susan Bala, the founder and CEO of Phoenix Global Technology.
Bom dia and obrigado. It is my only 3 words of Portuguese. I'm using them a lot these last 2 days. I want to thank you for inviting me. This is a wonderful experience to be among the thought leaders of Brazil, the officials, the regulators, the people in government, the business people, the entrepreneurs who are shaping the policies of tomorrow. And I think this topic is so relevant because this is a very hot topic. It's of a big debate. And I want to make the case here today and discuss with you the economy of gaming. This is not really just gaming for gaming's sake. This is about an economy, an ecosystem, about tourism, and about economic development. The gaming itself is really only a stimulant to that. So I want to tell you that I come to this industry in a very strange way. The latest company that we've developed is Phoenix Global Technology. We are on the compliance side. We have developed compliance technology that takes you from the biometric identification of the person who's doing the wagering, the geolocation where the wagering is coming from, the anti-fraud tools, the sports integrity. We can monitor the wagering in such a manner that we can tell the regulators, the leagues, and the operators before the game starts if there has been any manipulation. We've got the black market mitigation so that we can identify the black market non-regulated, non-licensed operators. Right now we're taking $3 of $4 in the regulated markets. We've got the audit tools to make sure that the reports are correct to the government so that your taxes are collected. Why did I become so passionate about this industry and about regulation is a story I want to tell you a little bit about. So I come to this in a strange way. I was asked by the governor of one of the states in the United States to do an industry study and build a model for horse racing. This was after the United States Supreme Court had passed their opinion in 2000. It was in 1985. And the states didn't know what to do because this now was going to become a reality, and they had to pass a law state by state. So I wrote one of the first laws in the United States to have horse racing off the racetracks interstate. We actually built a racetrack, we built an economy, we built an industry out of all of this. And as a result of that, I had never been in gaming before. I had no interest in gaming, but I was interested in economic development. I was interested in the charitable aspects of what the gaming dollars did. I was interested in new tax revenues. So as a business person, I had been an entrepreneur my entire life. I thought this is very interesting to me because I'd never seen something like this before. So this swept the United States. It went across the country. Eventually, I was at the forefront of Native American gaming. Another example of how economic development grew. The Native American gaming community had no gaming whatsoever on these tribal lands. They were sovereign, and so they sought to get the same privilege that other states had. They won it, and they went from bingo halls in tents to destination resorts. It has created the only true economic development ever in the history of the United States of America with Native American gaming. They now run these huge resorts, and they now build schools, education, hospitals with these revenues. So this became a phenomenon to me, and I eventually, after building the horse racing industry in the state that I was charged to do it for, I went across the country to help build regulations and new technology. We innovated the technology, satellite technology, data technology, at that time, put it all together, and we went international. As a result of this, I became a delegate with the United States Commerce Department for Latin America. So I went from Mexico down to Argentina and Brazil, and I saw that they loved their horses and they were still in the need of technology. So we built an international technology center. And we were the first to take pari-mutuel wagering on horse racing from Latin America up to the Kentucky Derby, up to the Triple Crown, up to all the racetracks in the US. So this was true trade development between the countries. And all of this created funds to make investment in the real estate, to make investment in the new economy that horse racing brought. When I got to the point where we were at a point of about $500 million in revenue coming in, I had a very, very unusual experience. The perfect storm came to me. And you don't know what's going to happen in your life when something knocks on your door that you don't expect. But this was the case for me. I had 2 government officials that were running for higher office that didn't understand the regulation or the law on a misrepresented story from some competitors. They came knocking on my door at my company and to me, and I ended up in a 20-year battle with the government, which I won. Why did I fight for 20 years? It might be because of my background. My mother is from England. I have English, I have Polish. I'm the first-generation American, but this came to my door so unexpectedly. I had been an industry builder, and I was now having an investigation on me and my company for doing something technically wrong. After 20 years, we proved our case. And in this case, we proved that we were to the letter of the law, to the letter of the regulation. The law and the facts won, but the battle in court was 20 years to get to this place. And during that 20 years, I lost the company, I lost everything. And I only finished this battle in 2002. Started in 2022. It started in 2002, it went to 2022, just 3 years ago. And in 2018, again, the Supreme Court of the United States had an opinion that sports betting was going to be legal in many states. It wasn't at the time. New laws were passed. I started consulting on legislation again, and it swept to 40 states across the United States. COVID hit, everything went online, and you know that now this is a global community. And so the case I want to make for you today, and the comments I want to make are these, that there is a debate about gaming, and that's a debate that you all have to make for yourselves. But the reality is that gaming is here. In the country of Brazil alone, you're one of the 3 top on the entire world right now, the entire world stage. Your numbers are over 110 million reais annually being wagered on the online community and elsewhere. This is expected to go to 350 billion reais by 2030. So you have this industry is here. The gaming is here. The question is, what will you do with it? And I submit to you 2 case studies. The first is out of Las Vegas, which has become a tourism destination capital of the world. How did this begin there? It was no place on the sand in 1931. 1931, gambling didn't exist there. They legalized it in 1931. There was no regulation to speak of. There was no formal board. By the time we went to the 30s and 40s, into the 50s, organized crime came in, as you all know, and started operating the casinos. In 1955, the Nevada Gaming Control Board was formed. And from 1955 forward, the corporations came in, the entertainment came in, the hotels came in, the tourism and the hospitality center of the planet was born. They keep reinventing themselves. They are now #1 in the world. United States is #1 in the world. Second is UK, and unbelievably, you don't realize it yet unless you get the education on this, which many of your people don't know yet. Brazil is on the world stage already. It is #3 in the world. This new environment of online has taken over. It is an explosion, and it is up to the regulation to catch up with it. It is up to the thought leaders in this room to shape where this is going to go, because it's here anyway. So what is the opportunity for Brazil? The opportunity for Brazil is to become, again, a tourism destination of the world. The second case study I'll give to you for food for thought as you shape your dialogue on this is the Philippines. The Philippines went into online, they went into, they had gaming going on, another very big gaming culture, and they didn't know how to collect the revenue. They were collecting it, but they didn't know if it was true or not. We put the software in, audit software in. Their tax collection went from 3 million a month to 90 million a month in US dollars over 2 years. That is a staggering number. How did it happen? 2 ways. Number one, they started auditing with proper audit software to find out where it was coming from and what they should be collecting. Number two, they started mitigating the black market. When you consider you've got licensees spending millions of dollars on a license, you've got regulators now regulating this market, and yet $3 of $4 is still going to unlicensed, unregulated, untaxed online entities. So that we began to mitigate this. We identified 4,500 illegal sites, now down to 1,200. So by doing this, by shaping this with the proper regulation, it drove all of the illegal activity into legal activity. It began to get taxed and is now being used for infrastructure, roads, schools, hospitals, social programs. And the other thing it did was create jobs, as it is in Brazil. So the debate will continue as to whether or not you should have gaming. But I think where the argument needs to go is it's already here. What will you do with it? I think that Brazil has one of the largest, most unique opportunities on the planet right now. And I think that if you look at this as not just gaming, but an ecosystem for tourism, for jobs, and for tax creation, you will win the day. The world is waiting and watching Brazil, and I can't wait to see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Bala. E nesse momento eu vou chamar aqui ao púlpito para fazer uso da palavra o senador, presidente da Frente Parlamentar do BRICS e do Senado Federal, Irajá Silvestre.
I would like to invite to the pulpit Senator Irajá Silvestre.
Bom, boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, it's a privilege to be able to see again our ex-president, Michel Temer. It's an honor to be again part of another edition of LIDE. I would like to thank our friend João Doria and all his highly qualified team, João Doria Neto, and everyone who contributes to organize another successful edition of this event. It makes me very happy to meet my friends from the National Congress, Senator Coutinho, our Deputy Elsmar. It's a pleasure to meet you again here. Roberto Campos Neto as well, always President of the Central Bank, who did a wonderful job during its leadership in Brazil Central Bank, achieving huge advances, the adoption of open banking and positive registration, and the worldwide known PIX, which is now being used in Argentina, in France, and Colombia, with a very similar technology. So it's a pleasure to be able to see you again, Arnaldo Jardim, my dear friend and colleague from the Chamber of Deputies, Housing Clever, the president of LOTEJ, who's been doing a brilliant job in this institution, revolutionizing and being an inspiration to other states so that they can also have such efficient and modern actions. Rio is now avant-garde in this area. It's been a very successful case. And our friend has been here for 3 years and has been doing a very commendable work. I'm very happy to see so many friends here. Alberto Leite, also another dear friend, present in our event, and all of the other members, Miss Susan, who has just presented. So it's a great pleasure to be part again of this new panel in this afternoon. And after conducting so many projects at the National Congress, I have been in the public life for 15 years, 8 years as deputy, and now 8 years as at the Senate, being a head, either as an author or a rapporteur of projects. Like I mentioned this morning, the fiduciary regulation in Brazil. I was rapporteur of a project for regulating cryptocurrency in partnership with Roberto Campos from the central bank. And finally, we were able to regulate this market in Brazil. I had the privilege of being the rapporteur of this in the Senate, and also the Bill for Economic Freedom, at the time a very needed act to simplify the lives of our entrepreneurs and citizens. Also, I'm the author of the First Job Act, which is being approved at the Senate, and it will be approved by our president. But I must confess that this project is one of the most challenging of my public career, which is the regulation of gaming in Brazil. It's a huge challenge, especially because it's a topic that has been constantly discussed for 33 years in the National Congress. So we have been discussing this exhaustively for 33 years in the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate, where we have had several public hearings, debates in the Federal Senate. We have approved these, which was a very tight voting, 14 to 12, but we had 14 favorable votes. But I would like to repeat that this is extremely relevant in Brazil. The legalization of games in Brazil means generating millions of jobs and an investment of billions of reais in the country, not to mention the growth and the growth of the national tourism, an industry that has been dormant, and I consider it to be, it will still be one of the biggest in the country after production of food and renewable energies, which are already two established sectors. Tourism is the third strategic sector for our economy, and this project contributes to improve and leverage the national tourism, as is happened in other countries, in Europe, Asia, South America, and United States. What we are dealing with here, and I want to take this opportunity, continue the comments of my previous speakers, is we are not defending gambling. There is a difference between gambling and responsible gaming. Gambling is what we have today, is the clandestine, is the criminal, led by criminals, managed by those who don't pay tax, they don't generate anything productive. That's gambling, which is present in economy and the life of Brazilians. What I am defending here, and the majority of you are defending, is the responsible betting, which is controlled by the public powers, where the governments can say who can and cannot operate. And it will be regulated by the regulators, by the Inland Revenue, by the Federal Police, and all the other competent organs and entities. And this responsible gaming, yes, it can contribute to the economy, contribute to taxation and tax revenue. Nowadays, Brazil doesn't receive a penny from the gambling going on. It doesn't bring any benefits to the Brazilians. So this conceptual difference is extremely important to be understood here. Another point is we are not creating anything new. We're not inventing gaming in Brazil. Some people say it's new. No, what we're doing is organizing it, which is said by Rosenclever very rightly. The Jogo do Bicho, which is the animal betting in Brazil, is part of the Brazilian culture. It's happened for decades. Unfortunately, there has been a decree from President Dutra in 1947 prohibiting these games from being legal. Bingos also have been operating for decades. I can't even count since when bingo has been going on in Brazil, and taking place in all cities, big cities, smaller cities. I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian, but at my church promotes bingo every Sunday. It's an activity to bring money to be able to maintain the church. They have several other types of gaming activities, so it's important to tell the truth. We are not here reinventing the wheel. We are trying to change the wheel of a car that's already in operation. We need to see this seriously, as several hundreds of other countries in the world have done. That's the reality we are facing. To give you an idea of how behind we are in relation to legalizing, regulating gaming, if we get all the countries from OCDE, only Ireland hasn't legalized responsible betting. From the G20, of which Brazil is part, only Brazil and Indonesia, which is a Muslim country, only these two haven't legalized it. If we look at South America, 13 countries in South America, only Brazil and Bolivia haven't legalized it. So we can't assume that the whole world is wrong and we are the only ones who are correct. Every country are taking this opportunity, generating income, generating tax, boosting tourism, and Brazil watching all this happen. And worse still, all of these countries legalized the physical gaming, which is what we're discussing here, the 2234 project, of which I'm a rapporteur, and then they moved on to legalizing the online gaming, and Brazil managed to do the opposite. They managed to regulate online betting, and then now we are discussing the physical gaming, which is the one that actually brings revenues and from taxing. So we need to face this and look at this very seriously, because the gambling is dominated by organized crime, and we need to create a framework, a legal framework to regulate and supervise the sector, and then be able to say who is apt and who is not apt to operate. And then just to end my time, my time here, we are talking about a sector which, according to specialists in studies, we would have investments around 100 billion reais to invest in the construction of resorts, which has been already approved at the Chamber of Deputies, and it's in the Senate now. We have 35 resorts being discussed at the Senate in big states such as São Paulo, Bahia, and other bigger states being able to hold two of those. So if we do a simple calculation, if we had 3 billion reais investment times 30 concessions, on average, we are talking about 100 billion reais, only with the integrated resorts, which could happen within 5 years. Imagine the injection of capital in the country and how much it would impact the trade and the service, the tertiary sector. So it's difficult to understand.
We're also talking about 1.5 million of new jobs and 22 million in tax collected by the government, because the bill is already establishing 16% going to the states of the tax collected. Then we have a share for health, for public security, and to several areas also for tourism, so we have Embratur there. So 22 billion correction here, which will come to our treasury, and they will direct it definitely to health and other areas. And then we have tourism as well. In all my speeches, I have said that I've studied all models existing and in force around the world. We have to follow good practices and discard bad practices or things that didn't work well. And on average, all countries have doubled the number of tourists in 5 years. We have several examples: Argentina, Chile, Singapore, all of them with no exceptions. We have 6 million tourists per year, and we could reach double that or even more of that, but we need to have a regulated, responsible gaming and gambling area in a responsible manner. So I thank you, Governor João Dória, and I'm very happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much indeed, Senator Irajá. We have quite a short time, but our co-chairman will ask a question. Over to you. Just a brief comment and a question to Senator Irajá. I was president of Embratur in 85 to 87, and Embratur had a study at the time considering and supporting the legalization of gambling in Brazil. And we had several visits to the US, to Europe. We published an article at O Globo newspaper. And then the following day, I was heavily criticized by trying to legalize gambling in Brazil. And my position remains. I think this type of gaming and gambling is necessary, brings good results, and we need to understand what is positive, what is not, and we need to remove gambling from the organized crime. It's very sad that prior to approving physical gambling, we had the bets, online bets approved, and online gambling. And also, I am very saddened by the negative repercussions that we had, and also in terms of taxes, because currently with the legal framework, we are not generating jobs, we are not collecting enough tax, and there is a franchise of irregularities in which betting games are and betting platforms are earning a lot of money. Contrary to casinos, just in a resort, to highlight what you said, if we consider an average value of 200 million reais, we are talking about 7 billion reais just in construction. We are not even talking about operations, which will bring jobs and opportunities and tourism and all the benefits to pre-selected areas, notwithstanding all the benefits brought by logistics and entertainment as well. Therefore, with regulation, Irajá, and congratulations to your dedication in conducting this, and you are really neutral. You are searching for best practices, and I've never been a gamer. I don't like gaming. However, I do acknowledge the value of legal gambling to a country and then to my country. I don't smoke, but I don't really condemn the tobacco industry because they generate jobs. And I don't drink, and again, so I just want to make sure Singapore was resistant against casinos, but when they implemented it, they completely changed the profile of tourists. So they increase in a tenfold the number of tourists, and they brought more money, more investments, and now the second biggest economic activity is tourism. So, and congratulations, Senator Irajá, for everything that you have been doing. Can you hear me? Thank you very much indeed. And with these concluding marks, we close the fourth panel. And I thank you all for being here. I would like to ask Mr. Roberto Campos to be here. Thank you, Susan Bala, Breno, Hazen Cleaver. And please, Mr. Roberto Campos Neto, remain here with us. We will start the fifth panel about financial inclusion enabled by technological solutions from Brazil and the UK. And I would like to invite to the floor Carlos Portinho, Senator and Cybersecurity and Cyber Defense Parliamentary Front member. I also invite Fábio Araújo, coordinator of DREX Project, Central Bank of Brazil. I'd like to invite Tom Attenborough, Head of International Business and Primary Markets of the London Stock Exchange. I invite here Alberto Leite, CEO of Group FS. I invite here Magno Maciel, member of Ex-Via. And before we make a start, I would like to call Johnny. Johnny, would you like to make a few remarks? Thank you very much. We have the last panel of today, and I would like just to make a few comments as we talked about gambling and betting, just to give you some important information within what we're talking about it now. When I see Roberto Campos Neto, I say that Fábio, Roberto, and their team, together with agribusiness, they raised Brazil. They raised the profile of Brazil. You, with Roberto Campos, heading the central bank and the entire team, you performed a great transformation, which is a global benchmark. Just mentioning a few details, a few figures. So Pix has connected over 170 million users. So almost the entire population of Brazil has reduced the use of cash from 43% to 6%, and that will continue to reduce. And Brazil is processing 15% of all immediate payments worldwide. So you can see the relevance of Brazil in terms of tokenization, digitalization of currency. And the UK, we always draw a parallel with the UK. So the UK is one of the greatest hubs of financial technologies and fintechs. It has a very sophisticated ecosystem, and it has had over 37 unicorns, and it is where open banking has been created, which has inspired open finance in Brazil. And currently, based on open banking, is the most advanced in the world. And we have representatives from the private sector, so thank you for being here, Alberto Leite. And we have BRB Bank without a representative is supporting the panel, and it's an example of what we can do when we privatize well. So they digitalize all their operations. 99% of transactions are Digital XView is a very important company in Brazil for fintechs, and Tom with the London Stock Exchange, which provides international capital in order to support the new wave of banking. So it's an ecosystem which has produced 37 unicorns and many fintechs which are now listed in the stock exchange. So it's the last panel, very interesting, and we will have a debate, Q&A, for us to capture as much as we can. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Johnny. And currently we have a record number. We have 12,000 people at TV LIDE watching this event. And now I call our first speaker, which is Alberto Leite, the first speaker for this panel. Hello, everyone. I would like to greet you all. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, my dear friend, Governor João Doria Neto. It's great to see you again. You're very dear to me. And we had Senator Irajá, our Excellence, who honors me with his friendship, President Michel Temer. And it's a great honor to be in your presence and to be here. Another friend, Roberto Campos Neto, a long-standing friend, now is back at the private sector. Senator Carlos Portinho, my colleague in this panel, MP Elmar Nascimento, many years working together and collaborating together. I would like to open this debate and this explanation about digital inclusion in the financial system. But perhaps we should just step back a little bit. How can we combine digital inclusion, financial services, without a safe, reliable, and transparent system? We are now facing an invisible trust confidence crisis. We have cyber attacks happening everywhere. And basically, a digital inclusion system, unreliable, cannot be scalable and won't be adopted by people because we don't have reliability, we don't have trust, and people won't use it. We have issues with financial markets. So these are key issues. So we need both of them to make things work. So what we have here, our view as a citizen, as a leader in Brazil, in cybersecurity, our opinion is that we have two issues here. First of all, during the last 20, 30 years, the software industry focused on speed and cost. So they wanted something fast, something cost-effective. What's the side effect? We have a lot of source codes not properly done. And then, on the other hand, you have cybersecurity companies trying to correct these failures in security. But the world is experiencing digitalization in all areas: health, energy, financial sector, any sector. We have digitalization in a wide scale. And as a result of these improper source codes, we experience every day attacks, leaks, data leaks. And in practice, what does that mean? We lose reliability, more costs, we don't digitalize fast enough, don't adopt services. So for Brazil, this is not a good way forward. Obviously, we are not making anyone accountable here. We were just recommending Brazil to lead on this agenda in a different manner where we don't punish the user. Because now when there's a data leak, those who are punished when there's a data exposure or when we have fraud or when we have ransoms, or is the user who suffers with this? And our first reflection is this one. So who has created these source codes, these softwares, this programming? So who has the accountability or who's in charge of hiring professionals, IT professionals who can deal with this, because it's not fair for the consumer to deal with the issues, but many times those who are neglectful or not prudent or for any other reason, they don't hire the right people, the right companies, and we can see what's happening in Brazil. Several attacks we had in the Folha de São Paulo newspaper. We had the federal police dealing with attacks, investigating attacks on the Brazilian payment system. Almost 1 billion reais were captured, were improperly taken from bank accounts. And we have the central bank who's been leading digital inclusion, as it has been mentioned by Johnny. So our first recommendation is that we actually make accountable software companies and also senior leaders who were leading companies and should be more accountable upon their hiring decisions. And then we need a better integration between central bank and also the Securities and Exchange Commission for any attack to be investigated within the first 72 hours. Transparency is the first measure for us to be able to correct. So currently, there's no transparency. We don't get the data. We only get a snapshot of what's happened. We don't know how much has been lost. So there's no framework. And I think it's too late now. We need to focus on that. Thirdly, it's what we call a great system in order to have approval, certification of equipment in Brazil. So Anatel has that. So they certify all types of devices, so smartphones, routers, so TVs, so everything is certified. So what happens currently? All this equipment can be connected. You have robots cleaning robots with cameras, you have cars, and who's certifying that? Who is saying that there's no spyware there? We need to create this certification system. We have that for smartphones, for radio, for telecoms. We need to certify equipment. And the fourth suggestion is to standardize cybersecurity rules for us to be able to unify these frameworks. So central bank has several regulations suggesting cybersecurity systems, but I'm talking about something more robust, where all the entities can follow minimum standards of cybersecurity.
And finally, we believe that no service provider in the cybersecurity area for critical infrastructure, so that could be telecoms, financial system, airports, etc. none of these critical systems should have access to services by cybersecurity companies that don't have a legal representative in Brazil. It's a matter of digital sovereignty. Today, mais de 80% of the services is carried out by companies that don't have a legal representation in Brazil, believe it or not. We had an incident 1.5 years ago. A giant company called CrowdStrike. They are worth billions in the stock exchange, and as a result, the ports, airports, transportation, etc., everything just stopped. You couldn't call anyone. 2 years later, you know what happened? The company offered $25 to compensate for every single user that couldn't use the services. But what happens is that because they are not represented in Brazil, they are not subject to the Brazilian laws, so nothing could be done. So we cannot accept that these companies have a low level of scrutiny. They need to have a legal responsibility on the services they provide in Brazil. So I believe that the Brazilian financial services are an example for the entire world, but we believe that its continuity should never ignore its digital security. Thank you.
Muito obrigado, Alberto Leite.
Thank you, Alberto Leite. I would like to give the floor now to Tom Attenborough, Head of International Business and Primary Markets in the London Stock Exchange.
Good afternoon, everybody. Look, first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here and to join this conference, and very much appreciate the invitation to give a few insights from the world of the London Stock Exchange and some of the things we're trying to do in and around this topic of inclusion and technology and how we drive forward our markets. At the end of the day, what we do as a stock exchange, where we're a convener of capital and where we help those who have capital meet people who need capital in service of an objective, that has been the same for 300 years. But the way in which we do it continues to develop and enhance, and I think there are some interesting areas I was going to touch on briefly today. Before I did that, let me just give you a couple of thoughts on activity levels and what we're seeing, very briefly. Some of the reforms that are going on at the moment in the London market, which actually I think are very important for this topic, particularly around inclusion. Some of the reforms, for example, about how we enfranchise and access retail investors individually and get them excited about investing in productive assets. When our new chief executive, I say new, she's been here 4 years now, but when she arrived 4 years ago, Julia Hoggart made a very clear statement that, why is it that someone with a phone can be standing on a street corner and with 3 clicks buy cryptocurrency in a completely unregulated market, and yet that same person struggles to invest in an IPO of a company which has been through a detailed regulatory process? It makes no sense. We need to sort that out. So there have been some reforms which I'll touch on, which I think make that an awful lot easier. So I'll talk about some of our innovations and technology developments, and I'll also just touch briefly on how we think some of this could be relevant to companies in Brazil. So look, first on activity levels, I think sometimes you'd be forgiven if you read the press only. You'd think that London was a pretty grim place at the moment in markets. I can tell you from where we're sitting, it absolutely isn't. Last year we saw $1 trillion raised on our markets across equity and debt. On the equity side, since the start of 2024, we're the largest European market by a factor of about 2.5 times in terms of the amount of equity raised. In the last few weeks, we've seen our largest capital raising on our growth market, AIM, raising over £1 billion on an intraday transaction. And we've seen a lot of multi-billion-dollar follow-on issuance, showing the depth of market and liquidity issuers enjoy. The IPO market has been tougher, but actually it's been encouraging that we've seen 3 of the largest IPOs of the year really just price in the last 3 weeks. So we're starting to see some momentum as we finish the year and as we go into next year. But even with a quieter IPO market that we've seen, we've had companies from 20 different international jurisdictions list on the London markets since the start of 2024. And going from sort of east to west, as I would look at it, from the likes of Australia, Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, all the way through Europe, through Africa, and to the US and Canada on the other side. So we remain, if not the biggest market in the world, certainly one of the most international. And that was underlined this morning by my return to the office. I actually got off a plane at Heathrow at 5 o'clock this morning from Saudi Arabia, where I've been this week. And as I walked into the office, I got high-fived by a giant can of tuna, which was a mascot representing a large Anglo-Italian food business that raised £400 million on our market this morning. So, as I say, activity levels are picking up and it's getting busier, day by day. I think the pipeline as we look into next year is both extremely international in its nature, but also building, very, very well indeed. So I think from what's been a good recovery in the last few months, sets a platform for what we think is going to be a very busy year next year. I mentioned the reforms that have been going on in the market, and again, I don't want to sort of lecture you on the history, particularly not at this time on a Friday afternoon. But I think post-Brexit, the UK had taken a step back 2 or 3 years ago and said, we now have the ability to rewrite our rules in a way that we don't need 28 other securities regulators to approve. How can we move forward in a way that we think that London can continue to preserve its position as the busiest and best place to raise capital across Europe? And I think there have been some huge and very important reforms to our listing rules, making it easier for companies to be eligible for our markets and attract a broader range of companies, particularly the sort of newer founder-led dynamic businesses that have, I think, very different needs. Easing ongoing requirements, whether that's executing strategic M&A, raising further capital, etc. We're trying to make all of that, more straightforward. So a lot of changes on the supply side, I might say, and I think the focus has turned now for us, the regulator, and most particularly the government, around how we can continue to improve the demand side. And that is both looking at pension fund reform and getting more capital into productive in assets. We have a pension system that's second only to the US in its size, but has, for a variety of reasons that, again, I won't bore you with, become quite concentrated in sort of fixed income, getting that capital tap turned back on, but also in franchising retail investment to participate and making sure they don't get left behind with the wealth creation opportunities that the market can present. In terms of technology and how we're using that to improve access to market, I think there's a couple of things I'd touch on. Firstly, we have created a new private securities market. We only got the regulatory license a few weeks ago, but that is something that will sit between public and private markets, giving companies an ability to tap liquidity whilst still being private. And we're also working on a digital market infrastructure solution, which has just completed its first on-blockchain transaction between a GP and LP in the private fund space. And I think that signals a only a start of what that technology can do to sit very much as a sort of horizontal thread to go through, all of our businesses and where we can take that. So, conscious of time, and I can see the 2-minute clock, 2-minute warning. So, finally, how can the London Stock Exchange be relevant and helpful to companies from Brazil as they think about sort of capital raisings? Well, we think we've got a number of advantages in London. We're a hugely international exchange. We like partnering with other local exchanges. About 15% of companies on the London market are dual listed. We think that can be a very interesting proposition. We already have 27 companies from Latin America worth a combined nearly $60 billion listed on our markets. And we have a long history, actually, of supporting issuers across LATAM. In fact, when I first arrived at the London Stock Exchange, the former CEO said, Tom, you will know the answer to this question. What's the longest continuously listed business on the London Stock Exchange? And I'd been in the business, I've been there 12 years now. I think this was my 3rd week on the job. And I slightly panicked and thought, it must be a sort of very traditional UK name. So I guessed Lloyds Bank, which I didn't think was a bad guess. Actually, it's Antofagasta, which first listed on London about 135 years ago to finance the railroads across Latin America. So there's a lot of history there. And I think in particular where in some of the most interesting sectors, many of which, and I'm sorry I only got here an hour ago, but many of which I think you've covered in today's program around sustainability, around fintech, are areas that I think very much fit into the sweet spot of what the London market can offer. We have a very well-established sustainability framework across debt and equity, and I think we are a financial centre that creates a lot of opportunities for fintechs, both to come into the UK and thrive as businesses, but also to use places like the London Stock Exchange to hopefully attract investor interest and capital as well. So I'm really interested to see where the questions go in this panel. Thank you again. I'll pause there, but really appreciate being here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. E nesse momento, dando seguimento à nossa...
So let's move on. I'll give the floor to the coordinator of the DREX project in the Brazilian Central Bank, Fábio Araújo. All right, I would like to start by thanking for the opportunity of being here in front of you, so many people that are at the forefront of what's being built in Brazil in the financial sector. That interaction with the productive sector, with the banks and etc. has been one of the main features of the central bank in the past few years, certainly in the past, the last decade, pardon me. Since we had an alteration on the parliamentary institutions. So when you talk about financial inclusivity using technological solutions, that's natural to me. I've been working in that area for many years. In Brazil, this is extremely important. I've been working in the central bank since 1998. When I got in, I was working in the research department. The goal was to create a mechanism to set out targets for inflation. I worked in that at the time, and ever since we have created a great level of exchange and cooperation with the UK. They helped us to shape this mechanism in Brazil, so I had an opportunity to deal with my counterparts here in the Bank of England. This was very productive for Brazil and also for England, so it's a great pleasure to be here to strengthen these connections between Brazil and the UK. The Brazilian Central Bank has that tradition of using technology and make use of a regulatory framework that promotes technology so that better services can be provided to the population. So during the decade of 2000, during the noughties, the general digital payment system was largely developed. With that efforts, the endeavors that we applied, we managed to have more people with access to bank accounts, but there was a problem that we only managed to sort out when the PIX payment system was created. Even though we have a large portion of the population with access to bank accounts, thanks to our endeavors in the noughties, and thanks to the changes in the laws for digital payments. But most people didn't have a banking history. They would get the salaries and then they remove the money from the bank accounts and then pay cash. So in a digital economy, that's a problem, because these people technically don't exist within the context of the digital system. So the creation of Drex was very important in Brazil. The digital coin made the growth of fintech companies possible. We have one of the most vibrant sectors in terms of fintech in the world. For instance, Nubank is one of the largest digital banks in operation in the world. But before PIX, we had problems in terms of interaction between the different players in the payment system. So PIX created a common pathway that allowed fintechs to provide services to all the municipalities in Brazil. So even the medium-sized municipalities in Brazil are really important for fintechs. There's a tendency towards digitalization, so the costs of maintaining the banking branches, banks can close those local branches, but with the increase of the online availability of services, it's been possible to bridge that gap. And when we created PIX, João Doria Neto mentioned that we have about almost 180 million single users of PIX. We had 7 billion transactions in 1 month, one single month. But the most relevant number in regards to PIX is the understanding that 71 million people have done their first digital transaction using PIX in the first 2 years since the system was created. That brought 71 million people who were in the economy, but they didn't have a digital footprint. They were not in the banking system, so the banking system couldn't offer services to these people. With PIX, now there's a history of payments, paying utilities, for instance. There's a credit score, or not score, but a history as well, credit history. And as such, you can now have a digital footprint for these people, and that's how PIX kept on growing. It was an exponential growth. And the use of credit and debit cards also increased faster than before the creation of PIX. Just because we now brought this portion of the population that was excluded, and we brought them into the banking system. There are other initiatives that have been mentioned as well. Open Finance, which is open banking. It's here in the UK, so there's a connection between the two. We've got Drex, and Open Finance has this vision. So we want to give the data control to the user who created the data. That's how we see things nowadays within the context of economy of data and digital economy. And That's a really important aspect from the regulatory framework.
Faz isso
But initially, if you do that in open finance in an ecosystem which isn't ready to operate, so you add an added layer to try and deal with the information which are not don't do it easily because of the way they were built in the first place. And you can evolve, you can offer services, as we have been seeing with we're seeing open finance helping with the offer of services, many interesting activities using these mechanisms. I think someone will mention some of these services later. But you have an opportunity, as mentioned by Tom, which is to bring the technology of digital assets to make the user experience easier. So in London, with a few clicks, for example, people can buy crypto, as he said. And to buy, for example, a share in a company that's very complex. This also happens in Brazil, and it happens on a much higher level of difficulty. Today, crypto in Brazil is the third most used modality of investment by the Brazilian population. The first being the savings account, the second is the sport betting. And the natural way would be to have public funds, public bonds as an option for people to invest, shares from large companies or bonds, debentures. But the mechanism is so complex to make these systems operate together, and it ends up not happening. And the technology of digital actives allows these operations to happen more naturally, and that's what we have been working on at the central bank, to develop this ecosystem of tokenization. We've been working with the market, and the feedback from the market has been very important in its design, and we are still overcoming several obstacles. But we see a promising trajectory that can put Brazil in a central position in this industry. I am open to questions later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fábio Araújo. And now I wanted to invite the Vice Chairman, the Chief of Public Policies of Nubank and ex-President of the Central Bank in Brazil, Roberto Campos Neto. Good afternoon. I will start by saying that technology it's a tool that was able to democratize access to several different types of services, financial or not financial. It doesn't solve everything. We were all here wanting to use the toilet. Technology can't help that. So especially after 50, but it does solve most things. So the idea is to talk a little about how this process came about. I've always seen technology as a democratizing element and tool, and we could use it more thinking about the future of the financial services, which would naturally be more digital. If we think that the world has been going that way, some countries faster, other slower, but all in the same direction. And when we think of the big blocks of innovation, they have been very similar in several different countries in the world. Let's think about the project that we developed at the Central Bank in Brazil. I was there for 6 years, and the idea behind the innovation in finance had 4 pillars. The first one is we firstly need to attract society to want digitalization. And in order to do that, we need another tool, which is to engage them. Engaging is everything in technology. So what generates more engagement? Payments. Payment is very important. Everyone uses it on a daily basis. So we thought, how can we create a payment system that creates engagement and that can be a gateway, being a gateway for more use. So we had peaks when we developed it in record time, just over a year. A system that, as mentioned earlier, is being used and made sure lots of people had access to bank accounts. We had a high level of engagement there. And then we need to think, well, I have a digital footprint and I have people engaged using it for payments with access to bank accounts. Lots of people opened bank accounts to have access to PIC's 80 million bank accounts, and 47 million people did that. The second pillar is I need to use this ecosystem to decrease the cost of products, opening the sector and generating more competition. And then we thought of a very basic concept. People tend to accumulate a personal data bank, and this has a great value for companies because usually any negotiation needs the alignment of information, especially in the financial sector. If I have information on people, I can improve my pricing. So how can I decrease this discrepancy of information? Well, I need to make sure that people can make this information available so that all the companies have access, and then we have open finance. In Brazil today, if you open an app, your bank app, you can have information of all your current accounts, so the banking products. You can migrate, you can change products, you can receive a proposal from a different bank who offers you a better pricing for the same product. So the open finance has two important concepts: portability and comparability in virtual time. So we wanted a system where we could generate segmentation and competition in real time. We are also going through a process where there'll be no borders in the financial systems. We see that happening a lot. Already we see that the cross-border payment needs to become more efficient. It has become more efficient already. I remember in 2019 I was giving a presentation asking what's the quickest way to take £1 million from transfer from London to Brazil. And one of the options that I put forward was by plane, and people thought I was joking. It's an 11-hour flight, so there wasn't a quicker option then, but we have progressed since then. We still have a long way to go. So instant payment, open finance, cross-border payments, which we've been evolving, and if we have everyone engaged, if I have the data, if I have immediate transfer of products and services, and I am able to have borderless finances, what's the next step? Tokenization is to think that money can be programmed. And that's because the financial assets will be tokenized. We see already stable coins growing faster than crypto. Some people confuse both concepts, but they are different. So these are the 4 pillars of the program that I mentioned. So when we think of instant payment, we are already generating huge financial inclusion alongside other systems in Latin America and in Europe. Recent, we had a Colombian system called BREB. I was part of it with my Colombian colleagues. They happened faster than PICS because they needed to have that quicker. They have 33 million people registered, more than 80 million keys to be able to use it. So a huge adherence. We have a similar one in Mexico. So around 17 countries experimenting with instant payment, similar to how we did it in Brazil with PICS. And we need to think how does it help the future? And then the main debate is what will happen with the future of money. If money is completely programmable, how are we going to interact? How are we going to align the old function with the new function? We have some countries already going through this problem. So imagine if people progressively buy stable coins. It's a very cheap way to have an account in dollar. So with stable coin, you can open an account and you can buy $50, $60, $100 very quickly. And then you have about 300 growth on that money in some countries. You have the same with crypto coins. If people are buying stable coins and crypto coins more progressively, in case of stable coins, 99% is based on dollars, so there's a great incentive from the United States to grow that, reminding ourselves that when we buy it, you're buying a bond from the American Treasury. So the United States is very interested in that, which is a way that they can get away from depending on China. But let's think of what is the consequence of that. If we have too many people buying stablecoin and crypto coins, what people are doing is they're withdrawing money from the bank and putting in a digital wallet. And what is the difference there? It doesn't give you credit. So what we see in certain places where this process is more advanced is the banks are losing deposits. People are withdrawing money to place in the digital wallets. And then what happens? The credit decreases. So going forward, we have a problem of how can we improve the interaction of creating credit and having these digitalized financed transactions. And Drex thought about that. We thought that we had to find a way of capturing the digital assets without hampering the balance of the banks. So it's important to continue with this project. We cannot limit this project. We need to work on a solution to help the central bank to find a technological solution. And in my last minute, I will talk about fintechs a little bit. I'm the vice chairman of Nubank in Brazil, and we see a lot of activity in the role of fintechs. What are the roles of fintechs? So I think it's important to advocate for fintechs in Brazil. So when we think of current accounts, we have risen from 80 odd million to 100 million. We have 50 million people included in the financial system. In terms of opening bank accounts, from 74 to 97%. Fintechs had 3 times more revenue than banks. Nubank had 28 million new clients which had never had bank accounts. From the 47 new bank account holders, 28,000 were at Nubank. And the participation of fintechs went from 12 to 27% in the economy. When we think of credit card, the big banks had 85% credit cards. Now they have 57. Thousands of people who never had credit cards in their lives had it through Nubank. When we think of tariffs, usually our tariffs are like 2.5 reais, and the high banks they charge about 30 times more. So when we speak of tax, which is something that was mentioned here earlier, fintechs pay a lot more than the traditional banks. In 2024, fintechs paid 30% of tax, and the large banks paid 12%. More recently, we had a recent study showing that fintechs were a huge driver of financial inclusion in Brazil, and they were able to decrease interest rates in about 2.9%. So I wanted to thank everyone and greet everyone, the Senator Portinho, who is a great advocate for fintechs, my dear Albertinho, who is a giant of technology. I wanted to congratulate you all, mentioning also the President Temer, one of the most notable presidents we had. I hope that soon we will have a president who is brave enough to do the necessary reforms. I wanted to thank João Dória and everyone else for the attention. Thank you very much. Thank you, Roberto Campos. I wanted to invite to the pulpit for your presentation Magno Maciel, a member of Exsphere. Good afternoon, everyone.
I really thank you for having us in this wonderful city. I will prefer to do this speech fully in Portuguese, despite being able to do it in English, but I'm pretty sure you have a good experience with the simultaneous translation. I hope so. Bom, seguindo.
So following the protocol, I wanted to greet everyone present. It's a great honor for us to be able to sponsor this event and being present here in the last editions of LIDE events around the world. I want to thank our always Governor João Dória by the invitation and the opportunity in promoting such a high-level debate, and I wanted to extend the congratulations to your team for their excellence in organizing the event. We know that this is a pattern that's repeated in every event your team organizes. I also wanted to take the opportunity here in this panel to acknowledge Roberto Campos Neto as part of the fintech ecosystem. We owe a lot to what you made possible during your mandate, especially what was mentioned before about open finance. It's more than a mere architecture of data. It's a tool of inclusion and promotion of benefits. We see how much it transforms people's lives to have access to better condition, transparency, be able to have the legal right of owning the data that they have held by financial institution. And this is due to this tool, and in a certain way to be able to promote a better financial planning for these people. So this is financial well-being, and it's one of the priorities for any citizen. But I wanted to also say here that Brazil has been becoming a global reference in financial issues with sophisticated data systems and working and organizing the information in several different formats, especially as a researcher in intelligence, so in artificial intelligence. I have been following how much it's been transforming not only to us as individuals, but in the ecosystem of businesses. If we look, for example, at a study of the World Bank, it says that generative AI will promote a gain in the order of $7 trillion in the next 10 years. So we are talking of something that has the potential to improve, increment economy as never seen, and contribute to the planet's wealth. There's nothing that the human beings are involved in that will bring as much wealth as AI will, and the financial market will, of course, benefit from this.
Here representing Exsphere with my colleagues, Hugo, my CEO, our CEO, Roberto, chairman of the board. Exsphere has been born as a GovTech, 100% Brazilian, but inspired in best practices of technological excellence. Everything that's being said here in terms of safety, we have this DNA from Estonia. And in Estonia, they are a benchmark for cyber security, interoperability. Security is taken so seriously there in Estonia that this is a historical issue. And when we talk about this accountability, the financial markets carry a very important responsibility, because you have all your assets there, and the citizen, the user, needs to know everything is secure, and this responsibility, we take it very, very seriously. But we are experiencing a transformation. So AI is a leap forward, and we know that we are very excited, but at the same time, we are very scared. And when we see practical applications, it's very clear that opportunities to improve citizens' lives are very clear. So what we have at XVIA, just to give you a demonstration, one of our chatbots, her name is Angelica AI. She is able to talk to someone, to chat to someone. And this is important. We want to talk to the data, not just access data. The world we are moving towards is a world where we interact, and via Angelica, the chatbot, you can check best payment options, simplified payments. You may be able to invest in crypto, in other products, but we need to promote the simplicity, which leads one to engagement. So engagement is important, and it promotes accessibility. So we're talking about financial inclusion, and this is a great pillar for technology to be an inclusion tool. And we live that at XVIA. We're present in several states of Brazil. I could highlight some, but the most recent one, which has been important for its repercussion, is the state of Alagoas. They have an initiative of digital government with our partnership, and that has transformed lives of citizens. So the financial markets, they will make the most of it. So we need to expand this contribution here in this manner. And this fine line between financial services, democratization of access to goods and services, at the end, we mean digital inclusion. We promote it. So this is a great pillar. And it's very interesting to talk about this in England, in London, in the UK, where we had open banking with good practices, and now helps us to improve and expand. Open finance as well as AI, they are different technologies, but they have something in common. It is what we call general purpose technology. So they are technologies not just utilized directly. So use the other applications created from them. So we have an ecosystem of tools, as well as open finance has been a driver to several applications for fintechs. We combine these technologies to be able to promote better pathways, better experiences, including inside other entities and public services. So government is part of it. So we see clear issues as to how public services, how can the government as a whole is able to benefit, and collecting tax. So when you talk about tax collection, when you have frictionless experiences, customization of these products, because everyone needs to pay their bills, their invoices. And if this is simplified and this offer is based on open finance data to provide discounts, better conditions, a customization. This will be the great benefit that we are seeing forward. So I would like to close my remarks with this observation that financial inclusion depends upon a digital inclusion, and AI will be a universal translator to enable that to take place. Thank you very much indeed. Magno Maciel, thank you very much. Now I call here the senator who is supporting cybersecurity and cyber safety, Carlos Portinho. Thank you for this opportunity to be back to London. I've studied in Guildford, so I am very happy to be back here and to participate in this panel and talk after people who I most admire. We had the best president of Central Bank in Brazil, Campos Neto, Fabio. In the Blockchain Rio, we've already shared the panel and these brilliant minds we have in Brazil. So this is a fantastic panel enabled by LIDE. So thank you very much indeed. So I'd like to greet you all on behalf of our President of the Republic, Michel Temer, and my colleagues, MPs and senators, everyone present here, your partners, the women. Patricia, she was my teacher at the Center for Public Leadership in a very interesting course. So I thought I wouldn't have anything else to say, but we have a lot to say. So I would like pigs in my country. That phrase was said by Stephanie Alcac, the ambassador to the UK in Brazil. She mentioned Brazil as a benchmark about what works well in Brazil, and it's a benchmark to the world. So we have the faster payment services here. It's similar to Pix with a few differences which have made our Pix system something that is part of our lives. And this has promoted banking inclusion. And now they use Pix, and now we have banking services to everybody. And this is important. They provide services to everyone's lives. And a difference between the UK system and the Brazilian system is that our tokens are more simplified. We use our tax number, the CPF, as a token, or your mobile phone as a token, and that made it very popular and easy to be adopted. One can always also use a QR code, so one can scan the QR code and pay their good or service, and we have a wide uptake by retail. So Pix was born during President Temer term, and it was implemented by the central bank, led by Campos Neto, under the Bolsonaro government when I was the leader in the Senate of this topic. So the impact of financial inclusion is very significant because we had the increase in the number of transactions, and with the number higher than credit card transactions. And in 5 years, we had 103% of increase in access to financial services. Now we have 48% of banking inclusion to 87.7%. And these changes are not just reflected because of the system. Obviously, the easiness to use is very important. So access to mobile phones in Brazil is a reality. We have a great number of mobile phones, and that allows people to access services. And it's important to say, as the rapporteur, and I tabled in the Senate the framework for startups. I admire fintechs because they've provided banking systems and banking services to many people. And it's a fallacy, Roberto, to see these attacks, and companies such as Shell, when we have the tax reform trying to actually tax dividends of those who generate jobs, and in the case of fintechs, trying to tax more. We just pay a lot of tax. So taxing those who bring innovation. Thank you for your support. Those who bring innovation, such as fintechs, are a good example. So I was very impressed with all the presentations here. And I see that not only Pix, but Fabio mentioned an important point. Due to Pix, to this tool, as it has been said, one of the pillars of access and democratization of the banking system to make operations easier, which is DREX. I am the rapporteur of DREX in the Senate, and first of all, I am in favor of tokenization, use of technology, NFTs as well. And we don't have such a big wave, but when we had a tragedy in my state, rain Petropolis, destroying our historical town where the royal family used to live, I asked for support, and I wanted to create an NFT to rebuild Petropolis. I was able to approve in the lower chamber, in the council chamber, for the mayor to launch this NFT because it'd be a heritage asset for the municipality. And we spent 2 years trying to get the audit court to authorize the call to launch this NFT, and we were not able to do that. So technology moves much faster than the state and the government, and we have to move forward. And in this manner, I see DREX, which is a discussion in Brazil, and for many, something that is idealized. And we need to be careful. We need to have social controls, and when we have a digital currency, and with it, the DREX, the possibility, for instance, in China, unfortunately, in a certain manner, each country follows their own priorities, and that scares a Brazilian person. And the discussion at the Senate has reached a standstill because of this. So the social control through currency. And we have to be concerned. We have to take that into account. But we must follow technology, and we must not miss out. States and countries, many of them are investing in stable coins, and they are anchored by the dollar, and there is a discussion about that. We have a bill at the lower chamber, and in the explanation of DREX in the public hearings, I'll show the advantages, because the types of systems we need to have to actually prevent misuse, because everything can be used for good and for bad. We can have AI for good and for bad and other tools. So that's why we have a concern. We don't want a misuse, and we need to have scrutiny in place. But I recall the positive part, what has been said. Can you imagine what we can do? So small producers who can't access international markets, they can have access through installments and using digital currency, so that will provide access to markets, reduce costs, so we can have benefits. I would like to continue with the discussion of DREX and perhaps conclude with the thought. So I've been thinking about all this for a long time, and I take criticism into consideration, whether perhaps we should try to internalize the DREX use through relationships between states. So it would be a digital Brazilian currency used between states domestically, because we could actually trace the money, and the money could only be used for that end, without intermediaries, without any friction, whether for providing payments between state and the municipality, the federal government and the state. Perhaps we could start with that, for people to understand what's a digital currency and what we can do. And perhaps later on, we could think about tools to prevent any misuse and any issue with a sovereign tool and sovereign currency. So I believe this can bring a lot of good results. So thank you for this opportunity to bring good news. So thank you, João Dora. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you very much, Senator Carlos Portinho. Please remain in the panel, and Roberto Campos Neto. We are going to close this panel now. I ask for a round of applause. Thank you for being here. Now I ask Fábio Araújo to be here, Tom Attenborough, and Fábio Leite, and Márcio Maciel, Magno Maciel. And to close this panel, I call here to the stage Michel Temer, former President of Brazil, MP, Federal MP Elmar Nascimento, João Dora, co-chairman of LIDE, MP Arnaldo Jardim, and João Dora Neto, Johnny, CEO of LIDE Global. Now I call to the lectern for the concluding remarks, Breno Silva, President of LIDE UK. You have 2 minutes for your concluding remarks.
Obrigado, Carlos Marques. Obrigado a todos por participar.
Thank you very much for being part of our forum. Another conference organized by LIDE in London, where we can learn a bit more about our country and debate topics that are important for the development of our country. As I said previously, we have the pragmatism as the backbone of our strategy. We want to develop the country at an international level. We have all the conditions to remain a leader in all the sectors that we debated here today, and we want to foster international cooperation with the UK, being one of the largest economies in the world. They are a relevant partner for Brazil and should and must remain so. So I would like to thank everyone, those who spoke here today, and once again, President Temer, thank you so much for being here. João Doria, thank you. Thank you for yet another conference here in London. João Doria, Neto, Johnny, thank you as well. I hope you found this day as productive as I found it. I took a lot of notes, I asked myself a lot of things, I learned a lot, and I hope next year we can be here together once again for the 4th time here in London for yet another conference. Thank you, everyone. I wish you a good rest of the day, a nice weekend. Those who are visiting London, please make the most of your stay here. It's a lovely city, and I'll be here available for anything that you might need.
Obrigado, Breno. Eu chamo agora aqui ao púlpito o Johnny Doria também.
Thank you, Breno. I'll call here to the stand Johnny Doria for his closing remarks.
Obrigado, Marcos.
Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, Breno, for your kind words and for your support here in London. To everyone, thank you very much. It was a long day. See my cousin Lorenzo here and lots of friends. Anyway, it was a long day, but we learned a lot. We have fulfilled our mission. We've had several international events. We've been in India, Morocco, here in London, the Emirates. Anyway, we organized more than 10 international events. And Cristiano, we still have Italy, in Rome. We'll also organize one in Paris. We'll be received by the French President Emmanuel Macron. And we'll close the year with 12 or 13 international events. So it's a robust agenda, and with the President Michel Temer here, I believe we keep promoting Brazil in the world, and we give you opportunity for you Brazilian companies to gain new opportunities of making business, and it's an opportunity as well to meet new people, new leaders, other leaders, so that we can create even more business opportunities, which in its turn will help our country. So thank you so much for coming to London, for staying here throughout the day. I believe we'll have yet another opportunity to meet tomorrow, and I hope to see you in future LIDE events this year and next year for many years to come. Thank you.
Obrigado.
Thank you, Johnny. Now, MP Arnaldo Jardim. Good morning. It was a very intense day. I learned a lot. I believe that in the conclusion I shall note that along with Julio and many others, I had the opportunity to talk about the agribusiness. Julio and the agribusiness in general is an important representation of what Brazil is about. So that was very interesting. The agribusinesses is in touch as well with sustainability, and now I found the digitalization, online payments, etc. I believe we managed to give you a snapshot of what Brazil is about. It was an opportunity to promote the opportunities that the country represents, and also to prove that we have a stability in terms of our institutions, which makes us very proud, and that we are very strong in terms of entrepreneurship. We just need something to bind everything together. So I said, Senator, when he mentioned the reformist spirit of Brazil, which I support, that means that we, Michel Temer and João Doria, we need to build a process by which we can have a national structure. Let's stop with the sectorial structures. We need a national program as a country. We need plural relationships around the world. So thank you so much for our representatives of the UK for having us here. But in the end, this project is a way to incentivize us to recover Brazil, to show the capacity that we've got, and to present the country as a strong country in terms of development. We have a commitment with sustainability, and we respect the democratic values. So thank you so much for everything that this event has represented to us today.
Obrigado, deputado.
Thank you, MP Arnaldo Jardim. And now, MP Elmar Nascimento.
Meu caro,
my dear friend João, in my own name and in the name of the MP chamber, which I represented here today, we spoke about very relevant topics that are crucial. All these topics are crucial to Brazil. And I would like to reinforce that the National Congress as a whole is available to work on all these topics, and we can be a way to create new partnerships and build a better country. After all, we need more entrepreneurs with a public spirit, so who are in touch with the public power, so that we can build the nation that we want to build. So we gave an important step so that these topics are debated in a well-paced manner at the right time. Brazil is very relevant in terms of the agribusiness, in terms of the energy transition. We are at the top of the table when it comes to renewables, and we have the right to expect to become a great protagonist of the world that we are building in the future. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, MP Deputado Nascimento. And now, Senator Carlos Portinho. Our independence from Portugal has been 203 years ago, but the recognition, Portugal only recognized our independence thanks to the indemnization that the government of England has volunteered to pay. So it makes sense that we are here in London. And events like this are important to attract new investments to Brazil. It's important to bring people together, distinguished guests such as President Temer. And I hope we can be as strong in the private sector as you were as a leader. So to those who are here today and have followed us today, please invest in Brazil. As Roberto Campos Neto, Cristiano from Shell, etc. We have brilliant minds in the private sector as well in the public sector. We have got innovation. We've got all the conditions on the environmental and sustainability side of things. We have renewables as well. So Brazil right now should be making the most of the opportunity that we've got in front of us. The world is at war, and Brazil should be a safe haven for everyone's investments. Thank you, Senator. Now I would like to give the floor to our President, Michel Temer. He will have 10 minutes. I would like to say, well, you gave me 10 minutes, I'll probably go beyond that. What I wanted to say is the following. So, I understand that people right now perhaps are a bit tired, but they are animated, so it comes from the anima. Anima means soul. People have soul, they are enthusiastic at the moment. That's how I perceive them right now. So, to make some comments in regards to what happened today, I would like to say that LIDE made the right move not to bring here all the public authorities. What they bring here are the authorities of the topics we are debating. José Múcio is the Ministry of Defense, He said a few days ago at an event, he said, I'm not mentioning any authorities because this is the most important part of the speech. People want to be called by name. And I understood that if you mention the authorities but you forget one name in particular, you will you now have an enemy for life. So it's a right decision not to name names. Second comment. I was following the Jorge Sampaio, the Portuguese president back in the day when he came to Porto Seguro, and he said, "Well, I've seen the names of these authorities, like 10 people, and so the names were repeated very often. So I salute you for your strategy of avoiding to name names." But João, an interesting thing is that I've been present in many events, all of them very productive, but this one is particularly impressive. Some of the topics here are more controversial. We spoke about the environment, gambling, financial system. These topics are more or less controversial. And now the environment, it's relevant because the COP is coming soon in Berlin. And when it comes to environment, I see something here in Europe. People think that environment is the Amazon. Brazil was one of the first countries who signed the Paris Agreements. But we've got the largest maritime reserve in the world. I believe it's equivalent to all the states of Spain and France put together. The maritime algae produces oxygen and consumes oxygen, and the forest, the Amazon forest, does the same. So in Parque de Veadeiros we have 40,000 hectares. We have increased that to 200,000 hectares. So note that the forestal law includes sustainable development as a way to preserve the environment. When you check what's in the law, there's a lot of it is dedicated to the environment. It's a controversial topic because often people mention these issues that are essential to the country. So with the upcoming COP, I believe that we can transmit this message to the world. So we are following the agreements, the Paris agreements that we signed. Another topic that I would like to comment on is gambling. You know, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I used to live near a barber. That barber, after lunch, he would sleep a few minutes on his chair, and people would line up to wait until he could wake up. He would dream of some animal, and the parents would ask the barber, "What animal did you dream on?" And it was something so interesting. So he would think of numbers, and people would just buy lotteries and would gamble on those numbers that he would dream of. So it's really strange. The Jogo do Bicho, it's a gambling game in Brazil that was prohibited, but it's strange. When I was the Secretary for Public Security, and when I was thinking about this episode I just mentioned, you mentioned really well that gambling should be regulated. Now moving on to pigs, I would like to mention another story. So a few days ago I left a restaurant in São Paulo, and one boy asked for money, and I told him, "Sorry, I don't have any cash, but if you want to, I can give you my Pix number and you can send me money via Pix." So this is a way to let you know how Pix became popular. And João Doria, you know that when you organize an event like this with these somewhat controversial topics, I see how you at LIDE create an important effect. So those who came here for their closing remarks, they all said they learned a lot, and that's true, we learn a lot. I saw Patricia Ellen. She gave us a really impressive speech, and I commented with her. When I was looking at the slides, I saw that she was ready to give us a 1-hour presentation, but she managed to synthesize that into 10 minutes, and we learned a lot. And we learned a lot as well from Roberto, the senator, etc. So I'm really happy in a civic sense. It was a great pleasure to be here today. I would like also to make a comment with regards to Rio de Janeiro. A sad incident recently that claimed the lives of a lot of people. But this situation, this struggle against organized crime, needs to be more systemized. And that systematization could be the solution, because as Senator Claudio Castro launched its operation in the streets of Rio de Janeiro, and then a program for peace was created. It's a program for safety, public safety in the entire country. And the Federal Union is the one that should be doing that. They should create a system to coordinate the public security systems of each state, because it's a national matter, in fact, a transnational matter. So we have the Ministry of Justice. They cover parts of the public safety, but we should have a specific sector dedicated to the public safety sector, just to report to the government every fortnight, for instance, and to keep in touch with other states and other countries. Because given that crime is transnational, you need to keep in touch with other countries to understand how to fight these problems. For instance, drug trafficking. And I mention this because it's the topic that dominates the press nowadays. So what I wish for is that the Union needs to understand that it's a transnational issue, and altogether we need to put an end to the organized crime and give stability back to the country. Thank you.
Muito obrigado ao presidente Michel.
Thank you very much, President Michel Temer. Now I call on the stage João Doria, co-chairman and founder of LIDE, for his final remarks. Thank you very much, Carlos Márcio. Thank you for being our MC today. Thank you, Johnny, my son and my boss. We've been here for over 8 hours at the Savoy discussing issues pertaining to Brazil, related to Brazil and the UK, and many key and important topics. And we have a bit of good humor as well. Even a poor person wants a pig, so we can't claim that there's no cash around. So the contribution of Roberto Campos Neto to Brazilian technology has made Brazil a benchmark. And we had Mr. Roberto Campos Neto receiving an award to the introduction of Pixar. To those who are here, to those who are watching us, we had over 14,000 people watching this event. And throughout the meeting, which started very early in Brazil, and here we are concluding at this time and ending on time. look how many topics we have discussed. Alberto Silva Jr., you are junior of P-Boy. We discussed here, Flavio, throughout this morning and this afternoon, as President Temer has mentioned, in such a productive manner, Portinho and Arnaldo Jardim. It's so good to dialogue, to discuss, to exchange. We need to have dialogue. We need to listen to each other. Without dialogue, we are held back. Those who can't dialogue, who can't liaise with other people, just stay behind. And those who are here have this intention, Breno, to share, to listen, to discern, and to utilize this information for their activities, whether in the public or the private sector. And that's what LIDE is doing. So, Johnny, up to the end of this year, we'll have held 15 international events, including Paris and Rome. So in 2 weeks, we'll be in Rome with over 50 Brazilian business people, and we'll have Italian participants as well, representing the business community and members of parliament. We won't have the president because he will be visiting Estonia, and he will be there on that week. 2 days later, we'll be in Paris, where we will have President Macron. He welcomed us last year, and he will welcome us again. And so it is not something that happens every day to be held at luncheon with the Brazilian business community representatives. So many of you will be there. So Brazilian business leaders will be there. We had a very positive and productive dialogue. It has generated business from both sides. It was a win-win dialogue. And that is why we are being welcomed again. And this is an achievement of LIDE. In May next year, we will celebrate our 25th anniversary. It was an original idea. It's always good to have good benchmarks. And it was born from an idea, and this idea grew and grew, and it has allowed us to get to here. And the day before yesterday, we have opened up the 27th branch in Romania. So Romania is very strategically important, and we'll continue with our events, and we hopefully will conclude the year with 35 branches. So we are almost covering the entire Brazil. We are reaching great milestones. So this is only possible because we are here together, talking, very active, and those who are at home watching, thank you for your willingness to follow all the explanations and panels. And I'd like to conclude to say that democracy is amazing. It's so good to be able to be here side by side with President Michel Temer, with his humbleness, far away from all the demeanors and some people who believe that they don't need to dialogue, they don't need to interact, they don't need to share. I really miss you, President Temer. We really miss you, but we can share these moments with you during these meetings. And I'm absolutely sure that my feeling is shared by many here. To be here with the former president of the Republic, former leader of the lower chamber, former general attorney for the state of São Paulo, and a constitutional lawyer. So I conclude my remarks within the time. Thank you all who traveled from Brazil, from elsewhere. Our British representatives, thank you so much for being here, understanding our way of doing things, and we were very welcomed in the UK. So thank you to all sponsors, all journalists who are following and watching, our team, our professionals who are here. If you want to play some music, that's fine. We have a team of women, and I'd like to pay tribute to the women who very patiently remained here. And as your fan, Duda will pay tribute, she has filmed you all the time, to have a mother, partner, and admire by your side. So I pay tribute to all the women here and who participated in this event. So a round of applause to the women in the room.
E agora, nesse momento.
Now, by closing this event, look at the time. I hope I'm right on time. So 5:27 on time. So we will have some photographs taken, listening to music, and we'll meet again very soon, either in Rome, São Paulo, Paris, or anywhere else. So thank you all, and God bless you.